most importantly, what I learned is it's not remotely like fake. It's incredibly athletic and really dangerous and really violent, but with all credit to them, they're taking care of each other. They're really hitting each other, but just so that they can do it again tomorrow and they can stay friends. They have a shared vocabulary so they can say, punch me twice and throw me over the ropes, and then I'll come back around. And so it's not planned and rehearsed. They just are good enough to know, okay, and they do that, and they're able to pull it off. And the most beautiful thing I learned was that usually the person taking the punch or being punished, they're the ones secretly keeping everyone safe. Even while they're like, oh, I'm going to rip your head off. And they are really like testing the limits of the human body. They're also making sure that they take care of each other. It's really beautiful.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship!
The World Heavyweight Championship!
The match! And new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world!
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Green. How are you out there in beautiful podcast land? First, thanks for tuning in. Like normal, I appreciate your time and your efforts. And this particular episode is probably going to be a little up and down. I do know that there's something in the news, views, and updates that's a little, little downtrodden, and it has to be talked about, but we'll get to that. Also, coming up, of course, is the review of WoW and this particular episode, which honestly I didn't have a problem with, surprisingly. But it is one of those episodes that you could kind of just have in a vacuum. Doesn't really connect to a lot of that. I mean, there's loose connections in there, but it doesn't really connect to a lot of stuff. It's just on its own. Now, it does open up the doors for things going beyond this episode, but just walking into it, it's not like there's a bunch of preceding issues that you would have to know in order for you to watch this. And it's primarily a two-match show. So, very easy to digest. Yeah, does it have its own little things in it? Sure. But in the overall scheme of it, I mean, it's hard to kind of screw up an episode such as this. But again, we'll get to that as we proceed. And speaking of which, we might as well just go ahead and make it, kick this thing on, jump start it, and go right into the bulk of the show. So, as that is, we will start off with our normal segment, is news, views, and updates. And what is going on out there in the news? Well, we've had a bunch of changes in the world of wrestling. As we know, that a couple of weeks prior, we've gone through a round of releases, and it appears that Asuka, WWE's Asuka, is at least stepping down from being a primary player in WWE's television. That's at the very least. She did post an update on her channel. It is in Japanese, however, she does have it subtitled, so you can go ahead and check that out. And she basically gives you the update of what it is that you can expect from her. She, in so many words, says that it's very obvious that she can still go, but And that's not to close the door, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's not to close the door on any future matches or anything like that. So I would suggest, if you want the full story from her own lips, go to her channel and take a listen to what she has to say about her future status. But as it is right now, I don't think that we can expect to see Asuka appear on WWE's television in the near future. Now, whether she will magically pop up on AEW or something thereof, TNA perhaps, that's I want to say it's a subject for another time, but it wouldn't shock me if she, a couple of months from now, just like, hey, there she is in TNA wrestling or something along those lines. I think that some of them want to keep the pathway fairly clear for a WWE return if necessary, but that's not to eliminate AEW, because I'm sure if nothing else, the money will talk, and Tony Khan has a fair amount of money, which WWE does too, but that's not one individual. That's TKO, and oh boy, as far as TKO goes, they just continue to rub some fans the wrong way with what they're doing, and just being as cold a corporate entity as they could possibly be. I mean, it's really just made it to the point that I very rarely watch WWE at this point. I just kind of scan through some highlights, or I'll check out, I'll read the results or something like that. But I've lost the ability to want to support the WWE in any capacity at this phase. That's sad. I never thought I would be at that stage in my life towards that company, but here we are, because it's just, oh man, it just isn't the same. And I know that's way off topic from Asuka and her WWE status, but we'll finish with saying that as it is right now, she's not affiliated in a wrestling capacity with the WWE. And that's probably for the best. Speaking of the WWE, we had a segment. Well, we didn't have a segment, but there was a segment that aired with Booker T talking to Nikita Lyons. Now, some of you may remember Nikita Lyons, particularly you that was WoW viewers. What was that, about 7 years ago, somewhere around there, when she was Faith the Lioness. Remember that? She was involved with one of the worst angles I've ever seen in wrestling, period. That hair cutting thing, which is so absurdly stupid. You can go back and you can find it. It was the old, well, if we're going to cut your hair. And of course, her hair was like down to her ass at this point. And so the only thing that they really did was they cut off like the tip. I was like, oh, that'll show her. It's one of those moments of like, I tell you, these stipulations, they just ain't good at them. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. That's off in the past. We were talking about Lions being WWE, but I brought this one up because it's not a huge topic, but it's something I have said about her for years now. That her biggest selling point, and that's probably by her own design and own doing, is essentially her sex appeal. That's it. And I'm certainly not going to be one to say, well, you don't be sexy on TV. Sure, it's great, but it's become the only thing that she's known for. Is it? This is not a new thing. This is something that I have pointed out. I don't want to say repeatedly, but I certainly pointed out in the beginning, and especially that little period of time when she was getting a whole bunch of comments by guys online like, oh, look at her, and where she wears that outfit and blah blah blah, just all of that. And she at that point seemed to lean into it. Here Booker T brought up the thing that I said she needs to dial that back, because it's all that she's given. It's all that she's kind of noted for, is just being sexy on TV. Again, not hard to, not discounting her appeal. But she's going to have to give something beyond that if she, is going to continue on with WWE, I would imagine. I was surprised that somebody actually brought it up to her on television. Because beforehand, you would think that, well, they must not have any issues with it. That she's still doing it. And she's been with the WWE since 2021, Las Vegas tryout. I want to make sure I make that clear before somebody out there gets the impression like, oh, well, WWE came scouring through WOW's roster to find some talent. No, they did not. They got her because she appeared at the Las Vegas tryout, like I said, in 2021, during one of the WOW hiatuses. And then she got picked up, and there you go. She went on from there. But she has not graduated, we'll use that term, out of NXT as of yet. I would imagine that she would really be pushing to try to, make some progress in that place before it gets bad. But yeah, she's been there for, at this point, where are we pushing? 5 years? And there was a stage where it seems like she was going backwards. From NXT to Evolve to LFG. Now, of course, she's back on NXT, or at least she's, floating around in there. But the idea that it would be brought up finally, I found very interesting. And hopefully she can do something with it. And I will repeat something I said about her probably at least 4 years ago. I'm pretty sure that when she went into NXT and the WWE system overall, she got an awakening as to how much she actually did not know. And what the expectations were and how they have changed, opposed to where she was to where she is now. I brought up Evolve. I'm not even sure if this match is taking place yet, quite honestly. But the Evolve Women's Champion, Wendy Chu, challenged as her first challenger, WWID Women's Champion, Laney Luck, which could be interesting. I probably need to go through Tubi and check out Evolve and see whether that match is actually taking place. I probably should have looked at that before I got on it. Yeah, I know. I get it. I also brought up LFG. And this isn't so much of a story necessarily as it is a question. Tyra May Steele was a gold medalist for the Olympics in 2021. Also 2021. Of course, we know that she was recruited by the WWE in 2023. She went on to Evolve. And after 2.5 years of working with the WWE, she was released. And I bring it up because I wrote down 2.5 years with the WWE. Was that enough? Was that enough? What is it that they are looking to gain out of people? First off, it's not like she went to the WWE and they recruited her. Right? And what is it that they're expecting out of these, talents who may not have even thought about getting into wrestling up until the WWE did it? Now, granted, with the WWE, opposed to, because I'm sure somebody's going to be like, well, WWE does the same thing that WOW does. Okay. Yeah, yes, that's true. They do grab some people that probably didn't give a second thought towards wrestling, or whatever. The difference is that they, at one point in time, had the infrastructure to make that work. I question that infrastructure now. At one point in time, the NXT, now this is the before days, before the pandemic and before they start killing off house shows, that was one of the things that helped them learn, is that they had them do it. They didn't need to do house shows. There was not a necessity for NXT to go traveling around the state of Florida doing house shows. Or for that matter, they did come up to Georgia at one point. It wasn't a necessity for them to do these things. They didn't need the money. They did that for oftentimes to get the experience on them because they knew it was about the reps. They needed the repetition to be able to get in there and get good at it and learn what it is, the pace, the time, and the psychology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it feels like the WWE has an unrealistic turnaround time / aspiration for these people that they grab it. And if this is all the time that they're going to give them, they shouldn't even have this program. They shouldn't even bother with it. Most cases of people who went to the WWE and became stars, most cases, not all, but generally speaking, by the time they get there, they're relatively polished. Especially the further back in time you go. Those were people that had traveled the world or been on the indies or, done some minor wrestling promotions here and there, or whatever the case would be. And then boom, they kind of move on to the WWE. And in a lot of those cases, you're talking 5, 6, possibly 8, 9, 10 years before they got pulled in. So they, again, pretty polished by the time they go. Think about those indie people that the WWE swore they would never get until they needed people to fill out that NXT roster. Your Sami Zayns, your Kevin Owens, so on and so forth. And you could go a little bit further backwards. CM Punks and your Daniel Bryans. You can go back further than that when you get out of the indies and then you're in the territory era. We had your Jeff Jarrett's, your Kurt Hennings, and Ted DiBiase, so on and so forth, where it all comes down to that they were more or less a refined product by the time they got up to the WWE. What were they expecting out of Steel? I mean, I don't think that's her actual was. I'm not going to say I don't think. I know that's not her actual name. But what were they expecting out of her? How quickly was she supposed to be able to turn that around? And it feels very much like the WWE just like, all right, well, we got to cleave off as much unused talent as we can, despite the fact that we got them and probably had them uproot their lives and move to Florida so that our corporate overlords can get a big bonus. This, in my view, is the sign of a bigger issue at WWE. Now, I'm sure they don't give a shit, and it's not going to shut them down. Let's just go ahead and address that now. It is not going to shut the WWE down, short of a mass exodus of fans. Short of that, they are never going to change their philosophy. But it kind of bothered me. I was like, she seemed like well, first off, we know athletically she's got it. She might not have the wrestling psychology down. She might not have, that portion of her game down, but athletically, I mean, she was a gold medalist. What else? What are you expecting out of her? Short of, again, her being female Kurt Angle or something. But even Kurt Angle had the benefit of being sent to Memphis. It's not talked about often, but he was in Memphis before he came up. It wasn't like he just popped in and straight from the Olympics and here we go. He was trained up a little bit. They had the chance to get in front of people a little bit. Had a chance to get the reps in a bit. Where was that going to be for Tyra May Steele? Or for that matter, the rest of those people that they just went out of their way to go and grab and stick on TV to turn around like, this isn't working out. Anyhow, like I said, that it feels like a sign of bigger issues around the corner. But time will tell. Don't take my word for it. We also have the Owen Hart Cup that's coming up. That'll begin on the 24th of May. Of course, we have the two different versions of that, the male and female Owen Hart Cups. And the brackets for those particular tournaments have already been announced. It will be, and then I'm of course doing the women's brackets. Persephone against Hazuka. It was going to be Willow Nightingale, the former, TBS title that she had, the former TBS champion, taking on Alex Windsor. But as far as I know right now, that bracket is vacant. The bracket that had Willow Nightingale in it. Unfortunately, she seems to have suffered an injury. So not only did she give up the TBS championship, she also had to give up her spot in the tournament. So whatever that thing happens to be that is preventing her from wrestling, hopefully she'll get past that. And, I don't want to say record time, but hopefully she'll get past it and past it pretty soon. Okay, where was it? Mina Shirakawa is going to be taking on Athena. And the last bracket will be Sky Blue against Sari. So that is where we are with the Owen Hart women's version of the Owen Hart Cup. Who will win that? Who knows? I might have gone with Athena, but something's kind of making me lean against that. Let's say Windsor. Let's see how she does. Now that might be a nice win for her to have, but I'm just taking a guess with that. I have no tracking knowledge of if they were doing anything with her beforehand. So again, it's one of those, take it with a grain of salt. But it should be interesting and nice to watch and see how that unfolds. And this is where it might get a little downtrodden, and I can certainly understand if this is not the thing that you want to hear. And if you want to push ahead, I get it. But this is Rebel's medical update, which some of you may have heard already. Some of you others may have not. She did post her medical update on her Instagram. And for those of you that were not up to speed with it, she went into the hospital not knowing what the issues were initially. She has now found out what the issues are, but it's an unfortunate diagnosis. She has been diagnosed, by her own words, with terminal ALS. Some people would probably know that more so as Lou Gehrig's disease. At least that's the name that it carried for the bulk of people for quite some time. That is a more or less a disease that I'm maybe oversimplifying it, but systematically shuts your body down. If you want more explanation, I'm sure you can Google it or whatever the case may be. But that's in essence what it does. Begins to shut your body down kind of bit by bit. It appears that she has more or less made peace with it. Anybody that's seen her prior to her going into the hospital, beforehand, you'll notice the change in her speech and how her limbs, I guess her fingers at this point kind of, don't seem fully fluid. It's and there's nothing that you can really say, man. This sucks. It sucks. It is awful to hear that. Now, I actually spoke to my ex-wife about this because she's an RN. There's, despite being diagnosed as terminal, there's no real way to set a time frame to that. You can't say, well, this time a year or 2 or 3. It can be quick, it can drag out. The one positive that I do remember in her video, and it is still, of course, is still there if you so choose to see it, is that Tony Khan came through for her. And there's a lot of things people, wrestling fans, could say about Tony Khan. And I've been one of them. I will fully admit that. That he's probably not the best booker for that. He should hire somebody else. He's like a mark, blah, 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 blah. But one thing you can't say is that he didn't have any compassion. We cannot say that. It was a beautiful thing to hear that we don't know what specifically he did. It is hinted that he took care of the medical bill. And in this country, that's a big fucking deal because medicine here is not cheap. You can go just get a x-ray and cost you a couple of $100. A goddamn Band-Aid might cost you $20 in a hospital. But if he did that for her, then bravo to him. Bravo to him. The only other thing that I want to put this out to the universe, I don't think that he's going to hear from me, but the only other thing that I wish that could happen for, if there's anything else that she chooses to do, travel the world, see certain things, whatever the case may be, I hope that he would find it in him to help her do it. And then the self-said video, the same video that we're talking about, she is asking for essentially thoughts and prayers. I'm not the most praying man in the world, but I understand what she's asking for. And in her words, says she's looking for a peaceful journey and a peaceful passing. I was like, that's why I say she seems to have made some level of peace with it. And I know that's got to be horrible. Facing your mortality, in the eye. Last night, what is she, 47? There's no other way to place it or no other way to say it. It sucks. It absolutely sucks to hear that. And, just in general. And I'm sure we've all had somebody that's come face to face with something along those lines. I know I have. And in hindsight, it's like, the persons that had to break that news and the persons that had to live it. First off, it's hard news to break. I can remember having to hear that, and I didn't understand the weight of what one of my teachers was. This was like, I'm sidebarring here. I'll get back to it. The weight of what a teacher had to tell us in 7th grade. Because one of our classmates was diagnosed. She didn't tell us this at the time, but one of our classmates was diagnosed with cancer. Probably was 13. Never graduated high school. She made it to senior year, didn't graduate. She passed away before that. And then I just one of those things is I wish that she had gotten to do something else. I understood where her parents were, she didn't, because her mom was a teacher. She, gonna do everything we can do for you medically, and you'll stay in school, blah blah. I wish she'd have just goddamn dropped out and done something else. lived the life that she had left, which is what I'm saying. That's why I feel that way about Rob. I wish whatever it is that she's got, live the life that you got. But in hindsight, like I was getting just to, about the teacher, I was like, I didn't realize how difficult that was when she said it. She tried her best to say this without actually saying it. You need to go see her. She needs your support. Like even saying this now for somebody that I've not met. I've only been in a facility with Rebel once. And I think it was Georgia Premier Wrestling, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. I remember the match. It was one of those indie super shows, and they had a whole bunch of people there. Billy Gunn was there. Vader was there. It might have been the last time I saw Vader. He could barely walk when I looked at that. But she was also in a match. Who she partnered with? Oh, God damn it. Probably should have looked at that before I started. Priscilla Kelly was in the match, but she wasn't a partner. Priscilla Kelly, Jessica Lee, Powerhouse Jessica Lee. That was her. Those was the opponents. Those were the heels, and it was not Rock and Roll Roxy. Who Tiffany Rocks. Tiffany Rocks, Rebel against Priscilla Kelly and Jessica Lee. That was the only time I'd ever, been around her and had the chance to call the match and everything like that. So that was cool. But past that point, she was just a TV fixture for me. So I don't have any personal, necessary stake in it. But still, it's just such a downer, to hear that. And especially, you can see that it's such an emotional thing. I wish her the best, man. I wish her the best. And now that I brought the room down, that's why I said I can understand if you'd wanted to skip past this, because I'm fucking depressed. So I'm going to give it a moment. We're going to get past this and then go off into the review. So stay tuned. Sit tight. We'll be right back. Rebel, we love you. And we'll see you on the other side of this.
Hello, Eve. See, when the news broke, I know that every single one of you thought, what if? What if she came back here to wrestle? What if she wrestled this person? It's going to be a 5-star classic. Where, see, I thought, she's mine. I thought, June 5th? Because I need to know if the fire inside you has actually died. I am dying to know if that give no fucks daredevil bravado can swagger through that curtain once again, because as you would put it, shy Waynes don't get sweeties. But I need to know if you know your place. Oh, and shake back if you don't.
Hello, Nation. I'm Emily May, and my special guest who's making her debut at Reality of Wrestling, Australian wrestling star, Simone. Simone, it is great to see you. Welcome to Reality of Wrestling. How are you feeling making your debut here at Raw?
Honestly, Emily, I really can't help but to express my deep joy that I have for everyone who's about to witness Simone debut at Reality of Wrestling. Because I am about to make it crystal clear, not just to Haley, but to everyone watching, just why I'm here. And Emily, it's not to take part, it's to take over. Pretty dress.
And we are back. This episode of WOW, titled The VIPs Are Back, is episode 431, season 4, episode 31. The air date, May the 9th. The chronological number 187. And the show kicked off of this 2-match episode with a recap of Blaze and Strike and Best for Business and Miami Sweet Heat and their entire rigmarole as a feud. This more or less begins with the locker room vandalism, and I use vandalism lightly. And it goes on from there, and then Ply Sweet Heat start to fire in the bucket. This also shows Blaze and Strike aftermath and pain after the match. I looked at this like, I can appreciate that they had them just down there writhing in pain, but I was like, well, when did they get sprayed in the face? I don't remember that. Maybe they did, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know, but it came off, and this little section of it was the only part of it that we didn't see in the previous episode. Okay, so this is like unique to this recap. But they were talking like, I can't breathe, or stuff like that. Like the extinguishers just got into their lungs or whatever the case would be, and they were just about falling apart. But I'm looking at this and I wrote down, when did Blaze and Strike get sprayed in the face? Or sprayed at all? And I am not willing to sit here and say that they didn't do it. I just don't remember it happening. It was like, I remember them getting hit in the stomach with these things. But beyond that, I'm like, oh, all right. If it was just them selling, getting hit in the stomach, like, are those magical fire extinguishers? What is with these weapons that's taking place in WoW now that people just fall apart when they get hit with something? Yeah, I expect it to hurt, but I mean, to still be writhing in pain, like, assumably 5 minutes later, I don't know. And then I also wrote, and I haven't even gone into the episode yet. Look, I'm already getting through this stuff. But then I wrote, what does the Heat have to gain out of any of this? This feud has been built on, let's call it's two people. It's Kalaki and Tara Strike. That's it. And somehow is ballooned out to Ashley Blaze and Sandy Shore and Miami Sweet Heat. Okay, all right. Ashley Blaze and Sandy Shore, fine, whatever. What does Miami Sweet Heat have to do with any of this? And they could have just as easily dropped out of this thing the moment it was discovered that they did not write that on the wall or, again, air quote, vandalized the locker room. Once they were proven not to have done it, why would they then go and do it? What sense did that make? I am free and I'm in the clear of the charges that I robbed this bank. So let me now go rob the bank. That's ridiculous. It is why I say whoever writes this is just not good at it. I am sorry. And I'm sure they don't want to hear that, but they're not. It just sucks. Anyhow, next segment was the WoW show opening. And then we go to the segment following that. It begins with Zayn doing the voiceover as they show Vegas, the zip lines and etc. I guess they're getting something. I hope they're getting something from it. That's the only thing I can really say for the amount of time that they beat you in the head with Fremont Street Experience and 1,000 lights and the most walked scene in Vegas and etc., etc., etc. Okay, I hope that they got a check from that at least. If they didn't, then they're wasting their time. I mean, he can bring it up a couple of times, but we can see that they're in Vegas. I don't think there's any dispute as to where they are. I mean, you can look at it, the second that you tune into it, you see it's all Vegas. And before I go any further, I just had to, because when the show began in Vegas, I was fine. It's just like the whole thing with the TV studio. I was perfectly fine with it because it was different. It was a different feel. It was a different vibe. It was great to see them in a different environment altogether. But that doesn't mean I want to see them in that same environment for months at a time. It's been too long now. Well, what is this, 5 months into it at the same place? I mean, there's indie shows that do more traveling than that. Just to change the environment. And then the ones that don't, you understand it because they at least have the benefit of, hey, look, we don't have the budget to be able to move around like that. I would imagine that WoW has some kind of budget to it. And it began as a wonderful backdrop. But now it's just carried on so long. They make it very easy to beat you in the head and just drain you dry of these locations that they have. Yeah, it looked great initially, but can we get out of here now? It's like when the thing first started and there was that, what was that, the Belasco or whatever out place they were. Like it looked beautiful on TV, but then it just stayed there. and it never changed. And it was always the same locations for some sort of confrontation at the bottom of the steps. And then it turned into, the TV studio, and that looked good for a little while. And then, same deal. After a while, it's like these 3 or 4 locations that we have here is all we got. I am at a point now where I just wish they could get out of Vegas. And I know that's not going to happen because they got, weeks worth of TV that they got to unveil. And whoever their photographer is, just as a sidebar, get out of the fucking corner. You take this picture. I mean, yeah, this is past tense, but man, hustle and get a better shot or something. Like every shot is around the same corner. It's right to the right of the commentator's desk, shooting past that turnbuckle post towards the casino diagonal from it. It's almost always out of that angle. Almost always. I mean, whoa, boy. Anyhow, let me not start with that because, like I said, I actually did find the episode, as a enjoyable, reasonable watch. But it's just those little things. So anyhow, Zayn and McClain talk up the zip line thing, and then they talk up Abilene Maverick and Paola Mayfield as having been all around the world because why? They're coming out. Abilene cuts a promo for Mayfield, which is probably very much necessary. Zayn and McClain speak with a lot of inflection as if everyone knows her as a star. And her being specifically Paola Mayfield. I have no idea how big of a star she is or isn't. Until I saw her in wrestling, I probably hadn't given it that much attention. But to be fair, I'm not a big reality TV show watcher to begin with. But they boosted her up like, she's been doing such and such and traveling around the world and got. And then, of course, Maverick reinforces all of those things. It does make me kind of question, like, well, if they could do all of that and they had that kind of money and that kind of clout, what do they need the Wild Championship for? That's, that was my first thought. I was like, if they're able to do all of this, for what reason do they want the Wild Championship? Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't want it, but it used to be that wrestlers wanted the top championship because it made them more money and it made them famous. That was the idea. Well, if you're telling me that Mayfield's already rich and she's already famous, then what does she need the championship for? Again, not saying that she shouldn't want it. I just wanted to know what the reasoning behind it is. Whatever her reasons are. So anyhow, surprisingly, and I say surprisingly because I did not expect David McClain to say it. When they were talking, well, not they, it was Maverick specifically. When she's in the ring and she's talking about wanting a championship shot for Paola, when she says in her most annoying, loud, nasally voice, which when it started, a year or so ago, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. She's, a heel and she's trying to, do her heel shtick. But now it's just, oh boy, it's just annoying. And I don't know if that's going to get any better over time. But as I was saying, surprisingly, McClain said something to the effect of, well, if they wanted a title shot, they should have been here opposed to flying all around the world. That I was shocked to hear. Especially when we had examples of this before where it's like, oh, yeah, well, Sprout Greens is off protest. It's like, well, why would you allow that? You just signed this woman. She had 3 matches, then she left to go protest something and then come back and do 2 or 3 more matches, and now she's out of the company altogether. What a waste of money. But I guess when it's not your money, what do you care? So he says that, again, I was shocked to hear it. And Maverick says that they're there to take Tormenta's #1 contender status. The very next thing I wrote was, when was Tormenta declared a #1 contender? I don't remember that happening. I don't remember having a match that made her #1 contender. At what point was she presented like, all right, this is the #1 contender, she's going to get her match again for the Wild Championship? Now, you could argue that she is a #1 contender based on a rematch clause. I mean, that would have been the thing that I would have said if I were trying to justify it. That she had a rematch clause. She hadn't had a chance to pin Lana down, to put pen to paper, but she's theoretically the #1 contender or something along those lines. But, that wasn't brought up and whatever. So I don't know when and how. And my example was my example. If they didn't say it, then it doesn't count. Then we get Tormenta, who comes out and she responds. This is not a bad portion of the show, but how do you even say it? It's one of those things that I've talked about before. It's like, I'm not going to berate Tormenta or Paola or anybody else that's on that roster for not being able to speak English. So why would I do that? But at the same time, I don't know if Wild needs to be positioning them to sit on the microphone and talk back and forth to each other for 5 or 6 minutes. And what's worse is that you had Maverick that basically said what I was thinking. Tormenta comes out there, she gets on the microphone, she responds. And again, there's fire, there's inflection there, but then Maverick like, I didn't understand anything you said. And I would imagine that she's not the only one. Sure, there's people out in the audience that understood every word that she said. But was it the bulk of the audience? That's the question. And then you got the heel that pretty much pointed out to you that I don't know what you're saying. So we get that, and then it forces McLean to get up, and then he starts speaking for Tormenta, which is the same thing that happened, what was that, when she was challenging the class project? David McLean basically became the avatar for whatever it is that she's saying. And he clearly didn't understand a goddamn word that you might not understand what, but Paola does. Like, well, did you understand it? That's the real key. If you're not a translator, then what are you up there for? What happened to the woman that was there to translate for Tormenta? Where is she? She showed up like for 1 or 2 episodes and then gone. This is probably the time that she would have been useful. So he gets up, he speaks for Tormenta, and you got Mayfield does respond and explain to Maverick what she said, that she's going to break our beautiful faces or whatever. And this ends with them getting ready to set up a match. There you go. I mean, all of this basically concludes with the match being made. And Zayn talks about Tormenta won't put up with the verbal abuse. I'm like, what verbal abuse? What did they say that was so abusive? I don't know. And why? Why is any of this taking place? That got nothing against the match. Well, actually, I probably do, because I don't believe in Mayfield as a talent. But this is another set of heels calling out the champion. I'll repeat, it's another set of heels calling out the champion. Where are the baby faces? Where are the top baby faces here that could be chasing after this thing? Another heel. I need a title shot. And as much as they supposed to earn this stuff, they'll just get it tossed at them. And just like here, Mayfield gone for who knows how, for X amount of months. She comes out. We want to get this number one contender shot off of Tormenta, which they never really officially declared, them being WoW. And then David McClain more or less just rewards it. They're like, all right, well, you got a match. And you'll go wrestle against Tormenta. So she pretty much got what she wanted. In fact, it didn't seem hard at all. I don't even know why people bother to go through matchups and rankings and whatever they do on WoW. Because at the end of the day, if you complain long enough and loud enough, you'll get the match that you want. The next segment is backstage. Sibley Scoles is interviewing Gabriella Cruz with J Boogie. Cruz is pleasant enough, but she is not strong on the mic. It's hard to dislike Gabriella Cruz. She comes off as such a just a innocent, cute baby face. I was like, it's hard not to like her. And the effort for English probably, in her case, it probably helps her to be likable. Doesn't help the promo, but it does make her, oh, she's trying. This would have been a good time for Boogie to have spoke for her, or at least reinforced whatever Cruz was saying in clearer terms. Other than that, Boogie was just kind of there. And I don't know why on earth she would have that gigantic boombox in the, shot for this. Maybe somebody told her, hey, make sure you got your gimmick. Hold that boombox up there. I was like, come on, man, that thing is distracting. It's Gabriella Cruz's promo. It does not need to have, Boogie can be there, but she does not need to be standing there with this big fucking boombox. Anyhow, I honestly did not understand the end portion of what she was saying. And it felt like we were going from one segment where it was difficult to understand right into another one. She said, I am ready for we. I was like, what? Again, it is difficult to dislike Gabriella Cruz. But in cases of these promos, this is where I would think that you would want to have a J Boogie back her up. Tell her to put the boombox down, and then she could speak for Cruz, putting Cruz over, and how good she is in that. She can go out there and this, that, and the other, or whatever. You know what I mean? Just get her going, because she's easier on the mic than Cruz is. Now, you would probably have to work out what is going to be said ahead of time so that she doesn't fall into the lure of doing the WoW promo. Happy to be here, say whatever gimmick line that they have, moves and grooves, give us something with more meat on the bones for the promo so that it can at least get some people hyped up for the match. But that didn't happen, so we got what we got. It was moderately okay. That's about as good as I can give it. The next segment is the match one of this 2-match show. Genesis with her backup Drucilla Blade versus Gabriella Cruz with Lil J Boogie. As Genesis comes out of the crowd, they seem unmotivated. Cruz and Boogie come out. Of course, they have to dance. But it doesn't do anything for the audience, it didn't seem. Genesis attacked Cruz after they were done. I think if she really wanted to get some heat, she should have attacked them while they were doing it. Don't wait. And then she had some line following it after the end of the match. I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but she's like, I said at the beginning of this, no dancing before the match. And she did. When did she say this? But if she was looking to, just to cut that off and get some heat out of the crowd, I mean, she should have, the second that they started to get them about 2 or 3 seconds into the dance, she should have ran behind Cruz and shoved her in the Boogie and then started the match. Or clotheslined her in the Boogie, something. That would have been the instruction I would have given. Like, okay, you did fine, but the next go round, just attack. Don't wait on it, just attack. So, as McLean says, the fans are loving this. We're going into the match. Now the match is fine. You can enjoy the match. And I would say, if you're a fan of either one of them, you can go pop on YouTube and take a look at it. But one thing I can say about it, it didn't come off as described by the commentators in certain instances. Now, this could have been audience exhaustion. It could have been one of the last matches of the night. It might have not translated to the viewers that were there. It could have been any number of things. But there is portions of this match that, as the commentators are talking, is like, what in the fuck are you talking about? They're like, these fans are loving it. And on camera is like they are the most subdued group of people that you've ever seen. Now, I can't say that what he was talking about meant the fans directly across from the hard cam. It could have been that he was talking about the people to his right, which are let's just call them what they are, the friends and family section. But when you're on TV and that's what you're seeing, it comes off wrong. It just comes off like either A, they don't know what they're talking about, or B, they're just saying stuff that isn't true. Are these fans up on their feet? I'm like, well, aren't they all up on their feet? I was like, do they have chairs? Look like everybody was standing around to begin with, except for the ones that in the makeshift stands. But I didn't get that. I mean, again, maybe he was talking about a different group of fans. But I would express being careful about that, because it does come off like, really, those fans are excited? Blade and Genesis do a suplex behind the ref when they hit the floor. Cruz took it, while Boogie's just inadvertently distracting the referee, trying to say, hey, look, turn around, that. Boogie does get some chant of Gabby going. So there's efforts there. Didn't seem to overwhelm the crowd or the audience, but at least there was effort to try it. Genesis has good body language, and she works very well as a heel. Zayn, good Lord, the action in this matchup. Look, the match is enjoyable, but it's not really a high octane affair. I don't even know if they would be able to contain themselves if they actually had one. If this is what gets you going, like, what a match, then I would Really hate to see you if they actually had a bigger one, because their heads might explode. But this would have likely been received differently if it were in front of a different crowd, and quite possibly not at the end of the night. Who knows? But I would tend to lean towards if it was just a different crowd. McLean yells about the wild crowd. Everyone here standing on their feet. That's what I was just talking about. And you can look at the screen as he says it. You do not have to take my word for it, but it does not come across like a scene of excitement out of the fans that are there. They just largely seem like they're just standing around. So it doesn't translate well on screen. Genesis pinned Cruz after a full Nelson Buster. Man, there you go. Now, it did come as a result of distraction, being in the corner, Drucilla Blade. Boogie tries to cut her off. I think Blade still stopped it. As that's going on, then Genesis got over to her and hooked her in a full Nelson, and bam, knocked her out. 1, 2, 3. And there's other good points of the match. She's another one that little step up leg drop that she did on the back of Genesis' head is beautiful. Work of art. I think she does it better than Kiera Hogan was the one that I had seen. I want to say originated, but she's the first one I saw do that regularly. And more often than not, the person that was taking it did not take it right. They always kind of went down before the impact. I've only seen one person with her in the time that she was doing it take it properly. Jensen seems to have it down. It may be because maybe that they practiced it. I don't know. But at the very least, when she does it, seems to have the execution that they're looking for. So she wins the match. Of course, there's a post-match promo. And Genesis goes out and does her normal thing. She's calling out Pink for a title shot. I wrote down this is a good promo, but it's the same promo that she's always done. I've been exiled. How many more times do we have to hear this? At this point, I am absolutely in favor. Just give her the belt so we can be done with that. It feels like it's been years of hearing that same song and dance. I never got a shot. I've been overlooked and overlooked and exiled. Like, how have you been exiled? You're still in that company. If you was exiled, you'd have been fired. I don't know. That part I don't get. I've been exiled, I've been exiled, I've been exiled, I've been exiled. First off, that group is over. They're gone. Give it a rest. And whoever's telling her, if somebody's telling her to say this, come up with some new material. If it's Genesis, please change the tune. Secondly, exiled means that you've been gone. Clearly, you have not been exiled. So it's not really a case of anybody to take this seriously because, what do you mean you're exiled? You're still here complaining about it. And it's been over and over and over and over and over again with that. Despite the fact that she has had opportunities. Like, how many more does she need? She had opportunity against Classmaster. No, it wasn't for the championship, but she had opportunity to beat her so she get a title shot. She had opportunity to win a title shot in the four-way. She had opportunity to battle royal. It is not as if Genesis has never had an opportunity at all, and she's been overlooked. She's been placed in a couple of championship, number one contender or whatever, however you choose to designate the opportunity of the match. She's been placed in those things a couple of times now. But it almost feels as if we just have to go with the narrative of Wild fans will accept what we give them and their memories are short. And it's the second time. Here's another heel challenging a heel. Again. So the question is repeated. Where are the baby faces? So we move on. The next segment was another Sibley Scoles segment. This time with Genesis and Blade. Scoles starts off asking questions, and Genesis cuts off the interview, calling out Pink further. Well, let's rewind here a little bit. I thought Genesis did pretty good here. Cutting her off, essentially telling her, "Hey, look, I said what I needed to. Were you paying attention to what I said? You know what you know how I feel about such and such." But then she goes into the same spiel of, I'm talking to you, Penelope Pink, and get it done. Sign me a match. Give me a title shot. I deserve a title shot. I am Ozzy at this stage. Look, I love, Penelope Pink as champion, but I don't know if this particular title reign has been the most fruitful. It feels like it's been kind of a secondary thing. But at this point, just to end this story, I want Genesis to win. I'm just so tired of that. It'd be different if she had some different dialogue or had different monologue, different promo, but it's the same thing. And it's always been the same thing. And I would hate for her to turn around, get a title shot, and then lose. Because it means that I might have to listen to more of it. So if there is any sort of justice in the world for just getting rid of stupid segments, she'll win it so we could just all move on. Genesis works well as a heel. Drucilla is good as, a background. She was not distracting here. She added to the scene without being distracting. Good for her. But it will always come back to Genesis needs new material and another purpose. This is old and this is tired. Next segment. Penelope Pink and Lana Star backstage. Chilling out on the couch while I guess the camera just happens to be there. And they casually brush off her challengers in this backstage promo. This is, one of her shining points. This is what she does. She's a good talker. Now, again, she's WOW's champion. As Miami Sweet Heat are WOW's tag team champions. But it doesn't feel as if they were on the forefront of any particular feud, rivalry, or being chased by some significant competitor or contender or anything like that. A lot of what they've done, it just feels like they exist on the perimeter of somebody else's story. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I just expect more out of the champions than to be secondary to somebody else's story. Like, it feels like you're the champion, you should have, your own thing happening. You should be a front runner in your own narrative. But, like, say, Miami Sweet Heat, they feel like the third string in a 3-horse race. And they're the champions. But it doesn't feel like it has less to do with them and more with the idea that, well, they just had the titles, so we'll have this match and probably get it off of them. Penelope Pink is not that far off. She's not involved in any sort of specific feud, story, or angle. She's done the champion thing, defending the title. But a lot of those matches are just, they just are what they are. They're just matches. They're good, but they're just matches. So she gives her promo. She, talks about anybody that's challenging her, basically she could take care of. She beat. After the segment, Zane gives a voiceover, about Kalaki getting her first title shot in WoW. Which I still maintain that this could have been a bigger deal had she been protected and presented like the resident WoW legend. The next segment was the WoW spot. Same what I talked about, whereas we're going to show some clips and then we're going to run off into buy our stuff. Next segment after that, Santana Garrett comes out to sit at the commentary booth. McClain announces her in, because why not? Ladies and gentlemen, Santana! That whole thing. Because, Kate Marie can't do that. I mean, let's call it for what it is. She certainly does not have the ability to hold saying Santana Garrett's name for the distance that David McClain does. So obviously he had to do it. She comes and sits down at the commentating booth, and Garrett says she's got her eye on the title, even though I haven't had it in years. Now, I would think that the championship would be a strong second to trying to get some sort of retribution, even fix this problem, or however you want to define it, with the Enlightened. But it's like that is just not an issue. And why is she still eyeing this title? Every time that she's gone after, she's been either beaten, flummoxed, tripped up, tricked, just whatever you want to call it. She just comes up short. And it always comes back to like, well, why is she getting these shots? She's just perpetually a top contender, I guess. McClain, of course, sings her praises. And I cannot disagree that having multiple people going after the championship doesn't put interest on the title. I cannot disagree with that. Having Genesis want the championship. Having Mayfield want the championship. Having Garrett want the championship. Having Smart want Classmaster won the championship. Sure. It does. Keeps interest on the title, which is good. But the title, and this is just me, I will fully admit this is just me. The title has never been explained as to why it's important or prestigious. That is my only issue with the championship itself. Now, I'm not going to refer to it as a world's title because I don't view it that way. When it's only in one city and it's only within the confines of this one company, it ain't no world's title. It's a company championship. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But that's what it is. It's a company championship. They can call it whatever they want. But it's not a world's title in the truest sense of the form. But I really would have liked at some stage or level or whatever the case would be for them to have explained it. It doesn't take some sort of long, drawn-out explanation on TV. It doesn't take a soliloquy or anything like that. But why would all these people be so concerned about this championship? Especially when, it's been more or less proven that it is not going to affect, like a Paola Mayfield lifestyle. It's not going to affect that at all. It's not going to make it better. It ain't going to make it worse. Santana Garrett, like, why do you want this championship so bad? Class match. It didn't do anything for her. Other than I was the champion. I got to walk around and be the champion. He didn't turn around and you saw her pulling up in a limo all of a sudden. Or something along those lines. And matter of fact, in most of these cases, it's like the heels already have money. They're already rich. So what do they care? Adriana Gambino ain't won shit. And she's already got walking in there with a Cadillac Escalade. According to her, she's got one in different colors. So again, why? What is it with this championship that would make them want it? When they clearly, in their universe, already have the means to do whatever else they feel like they need to do. Most people get into combat sports because this is my means to an end. And I have to fight in order to get, ahead in life. And if I have to go through you to get these things that I want, then that's what I'm going to do. But, who knows? Who knows? Maybe they'll explain it one day. Probably not, but maybe they will. The next segment is another Sibley Scoles backstage segment. This time it features Kalaki, the Island Girl. Let me make sure I pronounce that correctly. This is another case of being pleasant enough, but not a strong promo to hype people for the match. Is just smile, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. Now, I know that Tracy Taylor, a.k.a. Kalaki the Island Girl, has been doing this for some time now, which is why I suggested that, if she's going, she should probably be positioned as one of the, I want to say elders, but legends of the ring. She should have been positioned as that. So by the time she got to this point, it might have meant something. Here, it didn't feel special. It didn't feel like I was going to need to support her. Like, oh man, I want to see her win this championship because she's never got, there was no real story here beyond the fact that we're giving you a title shot and you never had one. And even that was kind of loose at best. She didn't talk that up. There's another case of the commentators talking it up. Whatever story it was that they were trying to tell, she did not tell it. And so she's there. Very lovely woman. But I don't know if I've ever heard anybody speak of her as she was a masterful promo. And it could be that maybe they told her, just you want to get out there, you want to smile, and tell them that, you're grateful for the Wild Championships, because that's what all the baby faces are. They're just happy to be there. They're just pleased as punch and happy to be there for the opportunity that I can get the chance to wrestle for the Wild Championship. Diesel comes in and gives her a hug, and she's, I know you're going to win, blah, yada, 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 yada. This was nice. I really just wish that she had a stronger promo. A promo that told people, yeah, I'm going after this title, and I need you to support me. Here's why. That should have been the marching orders. These people need to know why this match, you getting this title shot, is important to you. And it didn't have to be overly complicated. It could have been any number of things. I realize that my time in the ring may be limited now. So, I have not got the opportunity to have a championship recognized on a national platform, and this is my chance to do it, or something like that. While I was in desperate need of a change, there's been a lot of things that's going on here, and the only way that I can make that happen is to be the champion, so I could be the, the beacon of hope, something, anything to make me want to see her win. the idea that every babyface there, or more often than not, is just, gosh darn it, I'm happy that I got a shot. You know, the idea that all of them basically do that is just so, it leaves this just generic babyface syndrome. And that's probably what we need to call it. It's just generic babyface syndrome. Because all of them do the same thing. I'm just happy that I can get a chance at the fabled Wild Championship. Because who knows? It's not going to increase my pay any, but I just want the belt. Anyhow, next segment is a Wild Spot 2.0. It's updated, looks better, but it can still use a more direct message, in my opinion. It you know, they did their work with it, but it just still just kind of cut over to, hey, buy our stuff. All right. Next segment is the preview for next week, or the next episode. Paola Mayfield versus Tormenta. Again. And this entire feud feels like it's just been based solely on Colombia versus Mexico. That's it. Like, there's almost no other thing behind this beyond the fact that you're Colombian and I'm Mexican. I wrote down, this would be like if I was trying to sell a Georgia versus Alabama rivalry in New York. Sure, you might get one or two people that mildly interested, but the rivalry itself, why would they care about that? Why would they care? You know, I'm coming up with, yeah, this is the great state of Georgia, Georgia University, yada, yada, yada. And then somebody come up and talk about Roll Tide, and we're having this argument in a New York area. Why would they care? Now, if I did something else, I said your father was a worthless bum and he walked out on you when he was 5 and he had good reason to do it, you son of a bitch, then that might get some people interested. But just because I'm from here, you're from there, and I got this rivalry and you got this rivalry, oh, wow, you're like, I ain't saying, you know, there's nothing there, but why would the WOW audience care about Mayfield and Tormenta, Colombia and Mexico? And don't try to tell me that that's not what it's been about, because that was what the first thing was about. And I can promise you that it's going to come up at some point. Next segment is main event, Kalaki Island Girl versus Penelope Pink. The commentators sell the story of Kalaki getting the first title shot, but like I said, does not feel like a big deal. How big of a deal could it be if she never even talked about it or brought it up? How important could it be to her if she never talks about it or brought it up? Santana Garrett, who is in commentary for whatever reasons, because you got to have somebody come out to commentary every episode, she puts over Kalaki. This is, Kalaki comes out first, obviously. This cuts to Penelope Pink in the back. She's also being interviewed by Sibley. Lana Star, much like Drucilla Blade, I want to give her a double thumbs up here in that she adds to without being distracting. Somebody tell me, is she just getting this down, or is she being coached through or whatever. She's the best manager that they've got, at least at this point. You might get if Varun keeps going the way she's going, she might edge herself up there. She's great on the mic, and she participates a lot in that match. I want to give her credit too. But just little minor things that I don't think you don't have to stand there and do nothing. And she didn't. So when Pink is doing her promo, and she, of course, like I said, that's one of her strong suits, is that I would feel comfortable if I said, hey, I need you to go out and cut a promo on so-and-so and talk about this, that, and the other thing. I would feel very comfortable that she would be able to do it. She does not need anybody to talk for her, but I've likened her situation to some of the great wrestlers who had an associate with them that can complement the style rather than having to do the talking for them. Nick Bockwinkel did not need a Bobby Heenan to do the talking for him, but that combination worked. Ric Flair did not need a J.J. Dillon to do the talking for him, but the combination worked. And I would say the same thing with Dillon and Tully Blanchard and so on and so forth. They could do it. The manager was a garnish. And having Lana Star back there doing the little hula dance while Pink talks about her dancing, I was like, there you go. So, yeah, I absolutely think that she's got that to where she is not distracting from the person that needs and should get the spotlight at that time. You have to be willing to give up the spotlight for the person that needs it. Or the person, more importantly, the person that should have it at that particular moment. And it feels like, and I'll say it feels like, I could be wrong, but it feels like that she has at least gotten the concept of, I'm not going to try to do something to overshadow it or draw attention onto myself, or I'm going to hold up this gigantic sign so people can stare at that opposed to looking at the person that's talking. So I think that, the combination of them I still like. We go to the next segment, which is the match itself. McClain and Garrett talk as Pink comes out. But as McClain goes over, you could have won if not for the Enlightened. Okay. He obviously, of course, talking about Santana Garrett and her previous match where the Enlightened came out and intervened. This was the point where we know McClain was putting his commentator hat on and acted as if he had zero ability to have done anything about it or help Garrett or whatever. And whereas that might have been true, maybe she could have won if not for the Enlightened. But she also made a stupid decision. So it didn't come off like she could have won. It is the dumb babyface. That's the other half of that. You got generic babyface syndrome. You got dumb babyface syndrome. Dumb babyface syndrome is when you do something stupid instead of even attempting to go for a win. Like, all right, well, now I'm going to run over here right directly toward these people that kidnapped me so they can yank my wrists. But, as I said, McClain's talking about this, like, hey, you could have won, and yada, yada, yada. Of course, he's commentator David McClain in this instance, by the way. And she's talking in response to McClain, and she just, for whatever reason, is like, yeah, I know it. Just listen to the crowd. I was like, huh? What does the crowd have to do with any of the thing that he's talking about? It was like she didn't pay attention to a thing that was going on. Yeah. And that was, to be fair to what I just said, that was not the exact setup for her saying just listen to the crowd. But go back and watch that match and listen to that thing, and you tell me, it's like, well, where did that come from? Maybe I misheard it. Maybe I took it wrong. I don't know. But if there's something else there that I missed, please enlighten me. No pun intended. The crowd applauded for everyone. I don't think that they even bothered whether they were babyface or heel. As the match moved on, of course, we got the introductions. Katie Marie took care of that. McClain decides to ask if Santana's okay. This is as the match is progressing. Her answer sounds like she should be getting a CAT scan and not worried about a championship or wrestling. Some of this I remember, some of it I don't. I can't tell if it was actual memory or this. I was like, now, if you're having them kind of problems with your memory that you can't tell reality from what, from fantasy, or my memories are blurred or this, that. If you're at that point, you should not be in anybody's wrestling ring. Again, this is Dave McClain as commentator, so you didn't try to say, look, we're going to just sit you out. But that would have been the obvious thing. Like, if you having that kind of problems with your memory from getting whopped in the head with a book a month ago, over a month ago, if you are still having those kind of issues with your mind, your recollection, and everything else, you probably don't need to be in a wrestling ring. Like, you might be one kick in the head away from just being an invalid, a cripple, stuck in a bed somewhere with a bedpan, not knowing your full name or whatever. I was like, I know that they're trying to sell it like, this is the big injury, and this is what the Enlightened did to her, and it's so massive and terrible. But seriously, like, in this kayfabe universe, what justification would anybody have to allow her to keep wrestling? Especially when she's out there openly admitting that she still has issues, cognitive issues. Like, yeah, well, all right, well, it's good enough for me. Keep going. So anyhow, McClain says he had to stop Santana from helping because, she's sitting at ringside, and allegedly she was going to, she suggested that she might get up and help her friend, that being Kalaki. But of course, she also then walked it back. It's like, no, I would never do that. I wrote down, is that his job? I mean, he doesn't stop anybody else. He didn't stop Miami Sweet Heat from getting up and doing anything. I mean, I don't remember a single person that's ever jumped up from that commentating desk that he's ever stopped. But, of course, no, I can't let you go, Santana. You can't intervene. This is... I know I've probably said it a dozen times by now, but this is every reason that I dislike the owner / matchmaker / boss, and recognized boss at that, sitting there doing commentating. Because he's always going to violate the rules of his own universe. That's just a given. It is not going to change because he won't allow it to change. And he's the only person that would be able to. By saying, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. Let somebody else commentate that. But since he won't, this is going to keep happening. So, we got this match going on as they're talking about, the Santana Garrett's own personal things. And the match is fine. But Zayn, during this, says that Kalaki worked hard for this opportunity. And I wrote she had. When? How? When did she work hard specifically to get the... Gosh, that sounded like Sylvester there. Specifically. She worked hard specifically to get this title. When did that ever happen? I don't recall her trying to, I'm going after this championship. I'm going to do what I got to do to, get me a shot. When did that ever happen? How did she work hard for this? It's another case of where are these things taking place? WoW very often has these incidents or moments and other things that the commentators just have to tell you about and you don't see. So where was she that she worked hard to get the shot? I'm not saying she didn't have good matches or whatever, but there was no narrative of that. She just got a shot from nowhere. She didn't do anything on TV to get it that we're aware of. Maybe she had a match for number one contendership that they didn't show. I don't know. But if it doesn't air on their television, it doesn't count. That's just all there is to that. So, there was a moment where the match stalled a bit. This is before Pink went to the floor. I don't know why it stalled. It just did. Kalaki applies a great barrel roll. That little gut wrench into like a power slam. Looks fantastic. Zayn and McLean actually acknowledged Kalaki's daughter, Tsunami, which I was kind of surprised about. I didn't think they would bring him anybody, outside of a WWE environment that did not wrestle for the company. And Tsunami does wrestle on the independents, by the way. I'm surprised that she hasn't jumped over the wall. At the end of the match, we get Kalaki, and she hits her Eat the Reef, which is that snapmare driver that I called it. I'm going to stick with that because Eat the Reef just... But like normal, she didn't bother to go for a cover. Dumb babyface syndrome strikes again. Because rather than at least attempting to score the win here, let me decide to go surfing on her back for something that does not ever get a win. When she does that, that makes the match, to me, feel like it is just not an important thing. Now, there's no scramble to try to get this pin. There's no urgency behind it. It's just, all right, bam, I hit this big move. It looks great. So now, perfect time to stand on her back and act like she's a surfboard. Huh? I didn't get it then. I don't get it now. And then it turned around. She tries to go for the thing. Penelope gets out of it. She pins Kalaki following the Pink Nightmare. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. I don't know why that is a thing. I've never seen her do that when she was on the Indies. Maybe she started. I don't know. But that whole, I'm going to hit this big move and then go do something else is absurd. And it's the same thing that Santana Garrett does. Despite whatever move that she hits, I'm not going to bother to try to go for a pin. I'm going to go for this unnecessary thing. I hit you with a super kick. Now, if there's no title on the line, she'll go for a pin then. When there's everything on the line, then I have to go for a handstand into a moonsault. Kalaki, same thing. I can hit this thing, but after that, I have to just do something that's completely unnecessary to this situation. It's a fine match. You can enjoy the match. But my gosh, the time that it takes to, all right, let me go and stand on your back for a little bit is just insanely dumb. So there we are. That was it. That was the crux of the match. That was your 2 matches in this hour-long broadcast. And where do they go from here? Exactly. Well, let's see. We have, of course, their press release. You know, I guess they only make these for, I guess, people like me that are covering the show. The more I think about it, it's like there's really no real point in having these press releases for the public. They don't give a crap. But, you know, it is what it is, right? So what is it that they have next? Obviously, this is already aired or whatever it is that I'm about to read, but I haven't seen it as I'm recording this. So what do we got that's on the docket? The next episode is going to be Return of the GOAT. That is the title. It is going to be episode 432, season 4, episode 32, and it reads as follows. Coach Campanelli's controversial test continues as the pressure mounts with Top Tier. With the world watching to see if the foundation will crack or hold, Candy Crush steps into the ring against Lil J Boogie in singles action. Then all eyes are on the future of Wild Trios Championships as the boss. Ariana Gambino sends her alliance, BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni, Sylvia Sanchez with Reina Del Rey in their corner into action against the reigning Trios champions, Monsters and Metal, Chainsaw, Daisy Lane, and Fury. And in the main event, cameras are flashing as Paola Mayfield, the Colombian GOAT, makes her highly anticipated... right. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have got off track right there. Her highly anticipated return to the Purple Ring, accompanied by Abilene Maverick, the reality TV sensation, is not easing her way back in. She's diving straight into unfinished business with Tormenta. You know, if they had came out and said that might have been better. Like, I got unfinished business with you. And they could have took it from there. The read for Maverick and Tormenta, and that was like that one line was like a stronger reason behind them having a match than just popping up out of nowhere. And we want to take a number 1 contender shot, so I got it. But now what else we got? We got Campanelli and not Campanelli, Candy Crush and J Boogie. Well, I don't have any doubt about who's winning that. The Trios Championship. The alliance has not been very fruitful in these environments, and I don't expect that to change. I mean, why would they have any problems beating them to begin with when Tormenta beat Sanchez and Reina Del Rey at the same time? If she can do that, then certainly Chainsaw should be able to, right? So I am going to say Monsters and Metal and Mayfield and Tormenta. Who knows? I can't imagine that they would have Mayfield come back after being gone for, I can't remember how long. It's certainly been several weeks. But I can't even imagine any sane person taking her from her hiatus and having to come back and lose and do a job. That would not be overly surprising if WoW did it, because every once in a while they'll do some inexplicable shit. But in this case, I will lean towards Mayfield to get the win somehow, I guess. But in true Wild fashion, I'm sure that 15 other number one contenders matches will pop up following this. Because one is never enough. One number one contenders match is never enough. It's always something. It always leads to the other thing. You know, I need another shot, and then it's like, after 5 or 6 of them, then they'll finally settle on, okay, here's the match, and here's it's going to be, and this is the true number one contender. So I don't expect that to end. I expect it to just carry on somehow, some way, who knows. And as that, so as we close this up, I guess we will see where this goes, and time will tell whether these predictions are accurate or not. If you are on YouTube, please do the YouTube things, like, share, subscribe. It all helps. If you are listening to this podcast in standard podcast audio form, well, you can find us on greater podcast platforms everywhere. But if you don't know where to go, shame on you. But if you don't know where to go, well, right there in the top right corner, there's the address, WPNWrestling.com. Just go to WPNWrestling.com for everything. Centerpiece, Nexus, the place where all the episodes of the podcast drop. Scroll down, you can see the little widget, and you can even scroll through that. Find episodes that go back years at this point. Scroll back up, and you'll see our streaming channel right there on the site. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Videos going back, and matches, by the way. Videos going back to 2013. Faces and names that you probably recognize and gone on to bigger and better things. NWA, MLW, TNA, AEW, WWE, and yes, even WOW. You got a couple of those from there as well. And so, in closing, we will look out for this next episode to see if it does what I assume it to do. But in the meantime, until we get to our next episode, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.